My son didn't shout. He didn't slam his fist on the table. He just looked at me across the dinner table, shrugged his shoulders, and said, matter-of-factly, "Dad, you eat for free here." For a moment, nobody spoke. My granddaughter Ashley stopped eating her mashed potatoes. My daughter-in-law Jennifer gave an uncomfortable laugh, and I felt something inside my chest go completely still. I didn't argue. I didn't get angry. Instead, I smiled, excused myself from the table, walked to the hallway, and made one quiet phone call. "Charles," I said, when my old friend picked up, "I think it's time we had that conversation." And in that moment, everything began to change. My name is Harold Peterson. I'm 58 years old, and I spent 35 years as a construction engineer before retiring last year. I thought I understood foundations, how to build them, how to make them last, how to spot when something wasn't structurally sound. Turns out I knew more about concrete and steel than I did about my own son. Let me back up and tell you how I got to that dinner table moment, because it didn't happen overnight. It started 18 months ago when my wife Margaret passed away after a short battle with pancreatic cancer. We'd been married 33 years, lived in the same house outside Cleveland for 30 of those years. It was a solid brick colonial that I'd personally supervised the construction of back in 1985. Every joint, every beam, every electrical connection met my standards. I'd used my connections in the industry to get the best subcontractors, insisted on premium materials even when Margaret worried about the cost. "Harold," she'd said back then, watching me inspect the foundation pour for the third time that day, "it's just a house." But I knew better. A house built right would protect your family for generations. A house built wrong would give you problems until the day you sold it or tore it down. After Margaret died, that house felt too big and too quiet. Every room held memories I wasn't ready to face. The kitchen where she'd made coffee every morning for 30 years. The living room where we'd watched our son Rick grow from a baby crawling on the carpet to a teenager sprawled across the couch complaining about homework. The master bedroom where she'd fought her final battle with a disease that moved faster than any of us expected. My son Rick, that's Richard Peterson, he's 34 now, started calling more often after the funeral. "Dad, you shouldn't be rattling around in that big house by yourself," he'd say. Rick had always been ambitious, sometimes to a fault. After college, he worked with me for several years, learning the construction business from the ground up. I'd taken him to job sites, taught him to read blueprints, showed him how to spot quality work versus the shortcuts that would cause problems down the road. When he started his own contracting company about 8 years ago, Margaret and I were proud. He'd found a niche doing mid-size residential projects, additions, renovations, the kind of work that required both technical skill and customer service. For the first few years, business was good. Rick hired reliable crews, maintained relationships with suppliers, built a reputation for quality work delivered on time. But the recession hit small contractors hard. Competition got fierce. Customers started shopping for the lowest bid instead of the best value. Rick found himself underbidding jobs just to keep his crews working, then struggling to maintain profit margins when material costs went up or projects ran longer than expected. Margaret and I helped him through a particularly rough patch about 3 years ago. Mine a commercial client who declared bankruptcy right before final payment was due, leaving Rick holding $40,000 in unpaid invoices. We covered his payroll that month without making a big deal about it. That's what family does. Rick kept pushing the idea of me moving in with him and his family in Columbus after Margaret's funeral. "Jennifer and I have plenty of space," he'd say during our weekly phone calls. "The kids would love having their grandfather closer. And frankly, Dad, you're not getting any younger." He had a point. I was managing okay, but the loneliness was harder than I wanted to admit to anyone, including myself. I'd wake up in the morning and for just a moment forget Margaret was gone, reach over to her side of the bed, or start to call out about something I'd heard on the news. The silence that followed those moments felt like falling into a hole. Here's where I made my first mistake. Grief makes you more willing to listen to reasonable-sounding arguments. When you're 58 and suddenly alone after 33 years of marriage, moving in with family starts to sound like wisdom instead of dependence. Within 4 months of Margaret's passing, my house was on the market. Rick helped with the paperwork and financial arrangements, coordinating with the real estate agent, handling the staging process, even arranging for minor repairs that would help the house show better. At the time, I appreciated his efficiency. Margaret had always been the one who managed our household finances, paying bills, tracking investments, coordinating with our accountant during tax season. After her death, dealing with paperwork felt overwhelming. The proceeds from the sale, along with my pension and Margaret's life insurance money, went into accounts that Rick offered to help manage. "Dad, you've got enough to worry about without tracking multiple investment accounts," he said. "Let me consolidate everything so it's simpler for you." Looking back now, I can see the warning signs I missed. The way Rick always had quick answers to my questions about fees and account structures. How he'd redirect conversations about money management toward practical concerns like health insurance and Medicare supplements. At the time, his helpfulness felt like relief. By late spring, I'd moved into Rick and Jennifer's house in Columbus. The transition felt smoother than I'd expected. They made genuine efforts to welcome me into their routine. Ashley and Nathan, my grandkids ages 8 and 6, seemed genuinely excited to have me there. Ashley would rush to greet me when she got home from school, eager to show me her art projects or tell me about playground drama. Nathan, quieter by nature, liked to sit beside me while I read technical journals in the evening, occasionally asking questions about the diagrams and photos. Jennifer, Rick's wife of 9 years, worked as a dental hygienist at a practice downtown. She had that efficient, organized personality you'd expect from someone who managed other people's schedules all day. During my first week, she gave me a thorough orientation to their household systems, where they kept extra towels, how the coffee maker worked, which grocery store they preferred, even the family's preferred brands of breakfast cereal. She meant well, but something about the detailed instructions felt more like onboarding a new employee than welcoming a family member. Rick gave me the main floor bedroom, a thoughtful gesture since climbing stairs had become more difficult after a minor knee injury from my construction days. The room was comfortable enough. A double bed, dresser, small desk by the window where I could pay bills or read, but it never quite felt like mine. Maybe that was natural. After 30 years in the same master bedroom, any other space would feel temporary. For the first few weeks, the arrangement worked well. I helped Nathan with his math homework, using the same step-by-step problem-solving approach I'd learned in engineering. Unlike his father, Nathan had patience for details, and actually seemed to enjoy breaking down complex problems into manageable pieces. Ashley preferred creative projects, but she'd sit with me while I sketched building plans or reviewed technical manuals, asking surprisingly thoughtful questions about how structures stayed standing during storms. It reminded me of Rick's childhood when he used to follow me around construction sites wearing a toy hard hat Margaret had bought him. Back then, Rick had been fascinated by every aspect of building, how foundations were poured, why certain angles made structures stronger, how electrical systems and plumbing had to be coordinated to avoid conflicts. I'd thought that curiosity would translate into a lifelong love of craftsmanship and attention to detail. But somewhere along the way, Rick's focus had shifted from building things right to building things fast. I'd noticed it during his last few years working with me, before he started his own company. He'd grown impatient with the methodical approach that prevented problems down the road. "Dad, we can't inspect every nail and screw," he'd say when I insisted on thorough quality checks. "Time is money." I tried to explain that shortcuts in construction always cost more eventually in callbacks, warranty claims, or damage to reputation. But Rick seemed convinced that modern business required accepting higher risks to stay competitive. When he left to start his own company, I'd hoped the responsibility of running his own operation would teach him the value of doing things right the first time. Gradually, though, small changes began appearing in Rick and Jennifer's household routine. Nothing dramatic at first, just subtle shifts that I initially dismissed as normal family adjustments. Jennifer started handling all the meal planning herself, politely declining my offers to cook occasionally. When I suggested contributing to grocery costs, Rick waved away the idea. "Don't worry about it, Dad. We've got everything covered." But conversations about household expenses became more frequent. I'd overhear Jennifer mentioning to Rick that the electric bill had gone up since I'd moved in, or that they were going through laundry detergent faster than usual. Rick would respond with resigned sighs about everything getting more expensive lately. The comments weren't directed at me specifically, but they created an undercurrent of awareness that my presence was affecting their budget. When I offered to help with repairs around the house, fixing a loose cabinet door, replacing weather stripping around windows, basic maintenance tasks I'd handled my entire adult life, Rick politely declined. "I'll take care of it this weekend," he'd say, though weekends would pass without the work getting done. Eventually, I realized he preferred to hire professionals rather than risk me noticing problems with workmanship or materials that might lead to uncomfortable conversations. The changes were so subtle I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. But after 35 years managing construction projects, you develop instincts about when something isn't quite level, even if the deviation is barely visible to others. Small inconsistencies in a foundation can indicate major problems developing below ground level. The same principle applies to family relationships. The first clear warning sign came when my mail stopped arriving directly. Rick suggested having everything forwarded to one address would eliminate confusion. "This way nothing gets lost," he explained. "I'll make sure you get everything important." But when I asked about financial statements or correspondence from my attorney, Rick's responses became vague. "Nothing urgent, Dad, just the usual junk mail and solicitations." One afternoon in early fall, while Rick was at a job site and Jennifer was picking up the kids from school, I decided to check the mailbox myself. Inside was an envelope from First National Bank, with my name clearly printed on the address label. The return address indicated it was from the Trust Department, the division that managed the Peterson Family Trust that Margaret and I had established several years earlier. I'd never seen that particular type of correspondence before. Margaret had typically handled all communications with our financial institutions, filing statements in an organized system that I'd never paid much attention to. After her death, I'd assumed Rick was simply continuing to manage those administrative details as part of helping me through the transition. I opened the envelope right there in the driveway, standing next to Rick's work truck with its collection of contractor decals and tool company logos. The document inside was a quarterly statement showing recent activity on the trust account. Most of the technical language meant little to me, but certain numbers stood out clearly. The statement showed several discretionary withdrawals over the past 6 months, totaling almost $30,000. Each withdrawal was listed with a date, amount, and authorization code. Below that was a section marked Pending Transactions that showed a single entry, an asset reallocation request for $85,000, awaiting beneficiary authorization. I sat in my car reading that statement twice, then a third time. I hadn't authorized any withdrawals, large or small. Margaret and I had structured that trust specifically to protect our retirement assets from unauthorized access. The whole point was ensuring financial security during our later years, with safeguards built in to prevent exactly this kind of situation. My hands were shaking slightly as I folded the document and slipped it into my jacket pocket. 30 years of construction experience had taught me to trust my instincts when something looked wrong, even if I couldn't immediately identify the specific problem. This felt like discovering cracks in a foundation that everyone else insisted was solid. That evening, I called Charles Graham, the attorney who'd helped us establish the trust. Charles and I go back over 20 years. He'd handled everything from our wills to business contracts for my consulting work after retirement. More importantly, he'd been Margaret's friend too. She'd trusted his judgment completely, often saying he was the only lawyer she'd ever met who explained things in plain English instead of legal jargon. "Harold," Charles said when his secretary put me through, "I was wondering when I'd hear from you." The comment caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "I've been reviewing some recent activity on the Peterson Family Trust. Several transactions caught my attention." My stomach dropped. What kind of transactions? Charles explained that Rick had been making regular withdrawals using discretionary authority that was technically within legal limits for a secondary trustee. Margaret and I had granted Rick that status years earlier, thinking it would simplify administrative tasks if we ever became unable to handle financial matters ourselves. The discretionary limits were set low enough to cover routine expenses or emergency situations, but high enough to avoid requiring our approval for every minor transaction. "The problem," Charles continued, "is that Rick has been maxing out those discretionary limits every month for the past 6 months. Individually, each withdrawal falls within allowable parameters, but the pattern suggests systematic rather than emergency usage. And the pending transfer? That's where things get more serious. The $85,000 transfer requires your explicit authorization as the primary beneficiary. No exceptions." Charles's next words hit like a punch to the gut. "The strange thing is, the authorization request shows it was initiated from Rick's end, but there's no record of your approval in our files." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "Are you saying Rick submitted a transfer request without my knowledge?" "That appears to be the case. The bank is waiting for your signature to complete the transaction." After hanging up with Charles, I sat in my room for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened since moving in with Rick's family. The gradual restrictions on my independence, the control over my mail, the subtle but persistent reminders about household expenses and rising costs. Rick hadn't just been intercepting my mail randomly. He'd been specifically targeting financial correspondence, managing information flow to keep me unaware of account activity. The discretionary withdrawals hadn't been emergency expenses. They'd been systematic transfers designed to look legitimate while providing Rick with regular access to trust funds. Over the next few days, I paid closer attention to conversations between Rick and Jennifer. I started noticing fragments of discussions that I'd previously dismissed as normal household concerns. Late-night conversations about cash flow timing and project payment schedules that stopped abruptly when I entered the room. Phone calls that Rick would take in his home office with the door closed, speaking in the hushed tones people use when discussing sensitive financial matters. One evening, while walking past Rick's office to get a glass of water, I heard him on what sounded like a business call. The authorization should go through by the end of next week, he was saying. Once that happens, we'll be able to cover the outstanding invoices and keep the crew working through the winter. I stopped in the hallway, my heart racing. Rick was counting on that $85,000 transfer to solve immediate business problems. He'd been treating it as a foregone conclusion, discussing it with business partners or creditors as though my approval was just a formality. The next morning, Jennifer made an offhand comment that confirmed my growing suspicions. While I was drinking coffee in the kitchen, she mentioned to Rick that the materials supplier had called asking about payment schedules. "I told them you were expecting a capital infusion soon," she said, glancing briefly in my direction. "That should buy us another few weeks. Capital infusion." Jennifer knew about the pending transfer too. This wasn't Rick acting alone out of desperation. It was a coordinated plan involving both of them, built around assumptions about my cooperation that I'd never explicitly agreed to provide. That afternoon, I drove to the public library and used their computers to research trust fund regulations and elderly financial abuse. What I discovered made me even more uncomfortable. The systematic pattern of discretionary withdrawals, combined with the unauthorized transfer request, followed common templates for financial exploitation of elderly family members. The perpetrators typically start with small legal withdrawals to test whether the victim is paying attention. When those go unnoticed, they escalate to larger transfers that require forged authorization or manipulation of the victim into signing documents they don't understand. The research also revealed something else important. If Rick's business was struggling enough to require an $85,000 infusion, his company was likely carrying debt levels that could make the trust assets vulnerable to business creditors. By moving money out of the protected trust structure into accounts accessible for business purposes, Rick might be exposing our retirement savings to claims from suppliers, subcontractors, or other creditors if his company failed. That evening, I decided to test my theories. During dinner, I casually mentioned that I'd been thinking about reviewing our family's financial situation to make sure everything was properly organized. Rick's reaction was immediate and telling. "Why would you want to do that, Dad? Everything's running smoothly." "I know, but Margaret always handled these things. I should probably understand the details better." Jennifer jumped in quickly. "Harold, you don't need to worry about financial planning. Rick has everything under control." The phrase "under control" struck me as particularly revealing. Rick didn't just have things organized or managed. He had them under control, a choice of words that suggested authority and decision-making power rather than simple administrative assistance. "I'd still like to review the account statements," I said, "just to satisfy my own curiosity." Rick's smile became strained. "Of course, I'll pull everything together for you this weekend." But the weekend came and went without any financial documents appearing. When I asked about them, Rick said he was still organizing the files. Another week passed with the same excuse. I began to understand that Rick had no intention of showing me account statements that would reveal the pattern of unauthorized withdrawals. The authorization documents arrived the following Tuesday morning. Rick presented them after dinner, sliding the papers across the kitchen table with practiced casualness. "Just some routine trust administration paperwork, Dad. Need your signature here and here." I picked up the documents and read them carefully, taking my time despite Rick's obvious impatience. Jennifer watched from the kitchen counter, trying to appear busy cleaning dishes but clearly monitoring the conversation. Ashley and Nathan continued working on homework assignments, unaware that their family's financial future was being negotiated at the same table where they ate breakfast every morning. "This is requesting authorization for an $85,000 transfer," I said quietly. Rick nodded, maintaining his confident smile. "Yeah, just moving some funds around. Consolidating accounts for more efficient management." "Moving them where specifically?" Rick's smile faltered slightly, "into a more liquid investment structure." Charles recommended it for better estate planning flexibility. I knew immediately that was a lie. Charles would never recommend removing assets from the protected trust structure without extensive discussion about implications and alternatives. More importantly, Charles would have called me directly to discuss any major changes to our estate planning arrangements. I set the papers down without signing them. I need to review these documents more carefully before making any decisions. Rick's expression shifted from confident to concerned. Dad, it's just routine paperwork. Charles already reviewed everything with me last week. Then I'm sure he won't mind if I call him personally to confirm the details. Jennifer stepped forward, drying her hands on a dish towel. Harold, maybe we should discuss this privately. The children don't need to hear about complicated financial planning. I looked at Ashley and Nathan, both still focused on their homework, then back at Rick. For the first time since Margaret's death, I felt completely clear about what needed to happen next. You're absolutely right, I said, standing up from the table. We should definitely discuss this privately. Rick followed me into the living room, carrying the unsigned documents. Jennifer remained in the kitchen doorway, close enough to hear everything but maintaining the pretense of giving us space for a private conversation. Dad, Rick began using the patient tone people adopt when they think they're dealing with someone who doesn't understand complex subjects. This transfer is important for optimizing the family's overall financial position. When you say the family, who exactly are you referring to? All of us. You, me, Jennifer, the kids. This restructuring benefits everyone by creating more flexibility for future planning. I studied my son's face carefully. The confident expression reminded me of how he'd looked as a teenager when I'd caught him taking shortcuts on construction projects, hopeful that enthusiasm and persistence would overcome scrutiny of the actual work quality. Rick, I said quietly, how much money does your company currently owe to creditors? His face flushed red. That's not relevant to trust administration. I think it's very relevant, especially since you've already withdrawn $30,000 over the past 6 months. Rick's confident facade cracked completely. How did you? He stopped himself mid-sentence. How did I know about the unauthorized withdrawals? Because I received my bank statement, the one you've been intercepting along with all my other financial correspondence. Rick looked toward the kitchen where Jennifer was pretending not to listen, then back at me. Dad, my business is going through a temporary rough patch. The construction industry has been brutal lately, but this transfer would stabilize everything. By converting my protected retirement assets into funds accessible for your business expenses? It's not like that. The money would still legally belong to you. It would just be managed more efficiently through accounts that offer better liquidity options. I felt the same deep disappointment I'd experienced years earlier when I discovered Rick cutting corners on safety inspections to save time and money. The willingness to compromise long-term security for short-term convenience, despite everything I'd tried to teach him about the importance of solid foundations. Rick, I said, your mother and I established that trust to ensure financial security during our retirement years, not to serve as emergency funding for your business operations. His face hardened with resentment. You're living here rent-free, Dad. We're covering your food, utilities, healthcare coordination, everything. The least you could do is help the family when we're facing a genuine crisis. There it was, the same sentiment he'd expressed at dinner, but now delivered with open anger instead of casual dismissal. I walked to my bedroom and returned with my cell phone. Rick watched nervously as I dialed Charles Graham's number and put the call on speaker. Charles, I said. When he answered, I'm here with Rick, and I have the authorization documents in front of me. I'd like you to explain to both of us exactly what this transfer would accomplish. Charles's voice filled the room, professional and clear. The proposed transfer would move $85,000 from the protected trust structure into a general investment account with Rick designated as the managing authority. This would essentially convert protected retirement assets into funds accessible for family use, including potential business purposes. Rick's confident expression disappeared entirely. Charles continued, however, this type of transfer would significantly reduce the trust protective features and could potentially expose Harold's retirement security to business liability claims if the funds were used for commercial purposes. I ended the call and looked directly at my son. Now I understand exactly what you were asking me to authorize. Rick slumped into a chair, his shoulders sagging with defeat. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. Finally, he looked up and spoke without his usual defensive tone. The company owes $120,000 in outstanding debts, Dad. 3 major clients have delayed payments because of their own cash flow problems. If I can't make vendor payments by the end of next month, I'll lose everything I've built over the past 8 years. Why didn't you explain that situation honestly from the beginning? Rick met my eyes with obvious shame. Because I knew you'd refuse to help if you understood the real risks involved, so instead you decided to proceed without my informed consent. I thought once the money was transferred, you'd realize that your day-to-day life wouldn't change significantly. You'd still have everything you need for comfortable retirement. Everything except my financial independence and personal dignity. Rick winced as though I'd slapped him. I never intended it that way. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking their suburban neighborhood. Other families were settling into their evening routines, homework supervision, bedtime preparations, the quiet domestic rhythms that I'd once shared with Margaret and Rick in our own home decades earlier. Rick, I said without turning around, do you remember the summer when you were 16 and working on the Morrison House addition project with me? Yeah. What happened when I discovered you'd been skipping foundation inspections to save time? Rick's voice was quiet. You made me tear out a week's worth of work and start over with proper procedures. And what did I tell you then about the relationship between shortcuts and long-term costs? That cutting corners always costs more in the end than doing things right the first time. I turned back to face him. This situation is identical. You've been cutting corners with honesty and transparency, hoping you could resolve the underlying foundation problems before anyone noticed the structural defects. Rick nodded slowly, finally understanding the full scope of his mistakes. I know, I just couldn't see any other solution that didn't involve admitting failure. There's always an alternative approach, Rick. It usually just requires more work and less pride than the shortcuts. I picked up the unsigned authorization documents from the coffee table. I'm not signing these papers. Rick's shoulders sagged further. So you're just going to watch my business collapse? I'm going to watch you solve your own business problems using your own resources and skills. The way I should have insisted years ago instead of providing financial safety nets that enabled poor decision-making. Jennifer appeared in the doorway, having obviously listened to our entire conversation. Harold, if Rick loses the company, we could lose this house too. I looked at her, then back at Rick. And if I authorize this transfer, I lose the financial security that Margaret and I spent 30 years building. Which outcome better serves the family's long-term interests? Neither of them answered, because the question answered itself. The next morning, I called Charles and asked him to help me find appropriate housing for someone my age who wanted to maintain independence. By the end of that week, I'd signed a lease on a one-bedroom apartment in a well-maintained seniors community 20 minutes away. The apartment wasn't large, but it was mine. Rick helped me move my belongings, though our conversations remained strained and careful. As we loaded the last boxes into his truck, he finally said what had been weighing on him since our confrontation. Dad, I'm genuinely sorry about the unauthorized withdrawals, about the deception, about what I said at dinner that night. I stopped packing and looked at him directly. I know you are, Rick, and I forgive you completely. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending these events didn't happen or ignoring the lessons they taught us. What happens to our relationship now? Now you learn to solve your business challenges without compromising other people's financial security. And I learned to build a life that doesn't depend on other people's charity or goodwill. Rick nodded thoughtfully. Will you still be part of our family? I placed my hand on his shoulder. You're my son, Rick. Nothing will ever change that fundamental relationship. But I won't serve as anyone's financial safety net anymore, and I won't accept being treated like a dependent guest in someone else's life. 6 months later, Rick's construction company went through a structured reorganization process. He had to lay off several employees and scale back operations significantly, but he managed to avoid bankruptcy by negotiating payment plans with major creditors and focusing on smaller projects with faster turnaround times. The experience taught him lessons about cash flow management, risk assessment, and business planning that I probably couldn't have taught him through advice alone. We have dinner together once a month now at a restaurant halfway between our homes. Sometimes Rick asks for my opinion on technical problems or business decisions. I offer guidance freely, because that's what fathers do. But I never again confuse helping my son with enabling his poor choices or protecting him from the natural consequences of his decisions. The Peterson Family Trust remains exactly as Margaret and I designed it. The trust provides me with security and independence, which is precisely what it was always intended to accomplish. And I've learned something crucial about the difference between being part of a family and being financially dependent on one. Love should never require surrendering your dignity or decision-making authority. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do for people you care about is refusing to let them take advantage of your affection. If you're a man my age dealing with similar pressures from adult children who think they know what's best for your financial future, remember this. Respect has to be earned every day, even within families. Your retirement security isn't a family emergency fund, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is teach tough lessons through principled action rather than enabling words. Don't let anyone convince you that asking questions about your own money makes you difficult or ungrateful. Stay involved in your financial decisions, read every document before signing, and trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Sometimes that one phone call to the right person can change everything.